like close to the end. So, end of the Sikha. We were working on this Sikha for
technically the beginning of the next
many weeks. Okay, so hit that, baby. Woo. All right, it's on. So page 192. Yesterday we spoke about the heading of this chapter is we want to put all of our puzzle pieces together and try and make sort of a sweeping theory which connects all these pieces that we discussed, which is all things that are going to happen in Mashiach, the 3 cities of refuge that will be added in the future, the halacha will go like Beis Shammai, and there will be suddenly a heter for the shechita of the shurabor. So we said, well, let's start prefacing this by explaining what is the meaning of negative mitzvahs and what's the purpose of negative mitzvahs in the future. We said they're not going to serve the same purpose, they're not going to do the same thing. Right? Nowadays, there's the idea of a negative mitzvah is that there's the existence of evil, and the negative mitzvah is essentially trying to refine it and separate yourself from it, and this is what you're accomplishing. In the future, we said, we're not going to have this type of evil in the world, right? It's going to already have been refined. So the notion of the negative mitzvah is accessing it in its shoresh, which we said is called the Gevoros HaKadoshos, the holy Gevoros, which we explained is essentially this level of negation which precedes existence. We gave an example of this, how from that gematria that we spoke about, that the negative mitzvahs correspond to the level of Yud-K, the positive mitzvahs correspond to the level of Vav-K. In a deeper way, we explained the nature of knowledge, that to know things by way of negation, you can access more abstract and higher things than by knowing that which is in a revealed sense. Like this morning's class, we're talking about Orein Sof and levels of existence that are beyond the Tzimtzum. Obviously, there's no way of discussing those things in a way of what's called Yediyas Achiyuv, the actual fact, like grabbing the knowledge. You can only sort of say, like, well, what's the sun and the sunlight and the body of the sun? And it's not that, right? And sort of take yourself to an abstraction. So this whole level of reaching, like, the not that, this is a higher level of divinity. It's like the Yud-K. And when we're going to perform positive mitzvahs, negative mitzvahs, in the future, it's basically it's not that you're negating something, you're accessing the no, right? You're drawing down something, but you're drawing down that which is usually beyond hamshacha, revelation. That's what we said yesterday. And how do you do it? Basically by performing the action of not, right? That's what a negative mitzvah is. You're not building something, you're not building something, and that itself is a kli for this level of kedusha.
Can you say you're drawing it down? I feel like it's not like a positive mitzvah, which is like...
In this capacity, in the performance of a negative mitzvah, which is the non-performance, so you draw down the no, like you access that level. Al pizeh, third paragraph down. No, I handed them out over there. According to this, yeah, you see the third paragraph? Yesh levar gam pluktas beis Shammai beis Hillel b'shoresh inyanim. We can now look back at the arguments of Shammai and Hillel, or the houses of Shammai and Hillel, in the root of their inyanim. Beis Shammai sheshoresh nishmasum b'chinas gevoros. Since Shammai comes from Gevura, and all of his talmidim came from Gevura, but this is the Gevoros HaKadoshos shelamayla mechasadim. We're now understanding that they really represented sort of this Yud-K level. They were the higher level of Gevoros, which are beyond the Chasadim, right? A deeper perception of reality, of that which is beyond Giloi. Therefore, since that was their source of their soul, they could see things as they were in their source. In other words, that they were learning Pnimius Torah, they were seeing beyond the veil. And that's what we said, they went always according to the Koach. Remember we said, for example, the famous Hanukkah menorah example, that on the first day they lit 8 days, they lit 8 candles. What is that all about? It's showing you that they weren't seeing what they had in their hand. They were seeing the unseen. They were seeing all 8 days and the potential of the reality, and they already lit 8 candles because they summoned the potential and made that the reality. Yeah.
Right. Does it say that it's going by the potential of the Gemara, or is that like a rabbinical interpretation of why he actually held that halakha that way?
I do believe there's an opinion that says they went up according to potential, but
I'm
we.
saying, is it like
the
a
ex-
in
uh,
the
if-
Gemara,
I
like,
believe
or
it
it's
is.
theoretical
I have to go back and look.
philosophy of, like, why do you think that would?
I believe it is. Well, no, what it says is that they go after the Yomim HaNichnasim and the Yomim HaYotzim. So the language that's used there is not potential and actual, but it's like the days that are they're going that have happened or the days that will happen.
Yeah.
But this idea of koach and poel, the potential and actual, is a Kabbalistic interpretation, which I'm just using the Hanukkah example as one example out of every single one of their arguments that we actually, the Rebbe's bringing down. That's what every one of their arguments is revolved around. And again, he's explaining why now, because they come from a deeper place where they're accessing the gevuros which are above the chasadim, i.e., that which cannot be revealed and that cannot be seen, i.e., the potential, right? And therefore they paskin according to the potential, and therefore they're oftentimes saying no, right? Because that's how you paskin according to the potential. It's basically like you're accessing the non-revealed. You're not building something. You're refraining from building something because essentially you're seeing things in their state of non-being. This is called Gevuras Kadosho She'ena Mizgalim. They're not revealed. Ki'im ba'ofen shel hasagas hashlila. In other words, the only way you can access them, again, is by this negation way of understanding, which is above hasagas hachiyuv. It's above understanding something after it comes into its shape and form and you can touch it and describe it. And this is what we said in the Gemara. Again, all these things are rabbinic extrapolations, but based on the words of the Gemara, where, for example, they're called mechadei tefeh. They were called sharper students. They were like more brilliant. Now we're saying, what does it mean to be more brilliant? They didn't just reach the revealed knowledge, they reached the concealed knowledge, i.e. the Pnimius HaTorah. And therefore their conduct in the world was sheva al ta'aseh, sit and do nothing, right? That was how they paskined, because they were accessing their root. Beis Shammai osrim, and therefore they prohibited everything. Whereas Beis Hillel, shoresh nishmasam bechinas chasadim, they came from the level of chesed. What is the idea of chesed? Already, it's like we're discussing this in the morning class as well, right? This is the idea of not the etzem of the or, but the hispashtus of the or. When it actually shines, it comes into a state of existence. You can see it, comes to giloy. When something comes and reveals itself, that's a sign that it's lower, right? When something comes into a state of actual, it means it comes into a form of some type that basically previously it was only a potential form. So the very notion of coming out and showing yourself, on one hand, there's a quality and a value in that. You can see it, right? You have it in your hand. On the other hand, it comes along with an automatic step down in terms of its power. So they paskin according to the chasadim, their source. Ra'u inyanim elu kefishem begiloy. They saw things as they actually were. Bepoel. Inyanim shenimshachim izgalim ba'ofen zeh hasagas achiyuv. In other words, they were paskin according to that which comes to the actual human understanding, and therefore they said, "Kum ba'aseh, get up and do it." In other words, grab it. You're dealing with things that are revealed, and therefore they lean to the positive mitzvah, which is something you can see, touch, and feel, and perform and enact, right? And that's why they were permissible in everything. Okay, l'chein, and therefore. Do we have any more copies, or we ran out?
And we're missing out 4 or 5.
We're missing 4 or 5? Okay, sorry about that.
Sure.
Share. L'chein bizman hazeh, sherov b'nei adam einam shaychim l'dargasim shel Beis Shammai. In nowadays, when the majority is not yet shaykh to see things through the Pnimius HaTorah, basically, and to hold at the level of Beis Shammai, Lishkol l'dakdek b'shorosh enyanim, which means to basically weigh and measure and be exacting in things as they are in their true root and their potential status. L'mayl b'chinas gevuros kadoshos, in this higher level of what's called the holy gevuros, which means grasping things in hasagas hashlila, knowing by negation as opposed to knowing what you can see. You're like extrapolating theories that are beyond. Ki'im kefi shehem bepoel. They rather see things as they are in actuality, as they dumb themselves down and come out and present themselves. Ubegiloi shemehem yichom nishtal shel inyanim bilti rutzuim. And therefore, this is the idea that they hold on a second. Bechinas gevuros kedoshus ki im kefi shem bepoel ubegiloi shemehem yechol nishtal shel inyanim bilti retzoyim yesh lagbir chasadim al gevuros. So he's saying that. What is he saying exactly there? Bepoel begiloi. Basically, if you would try to be exacting, remember what we spoke about, like the trouble with Beis Shammai, right? Was that if you're going to try and be exacting and find the hidden evil in things, what are you going to wind up doing? You're going to wind up pushing away things that you don't understand why you're pushing them away, right? Because you've if you can't see the evil in it, and then you're going to just say it's usser, then remember we said it's like the day they made the golden calf. You're just going to essentially create something which is no longer elevatable. And therefore, since they can't see the depth of things, they can't extrapolate at such a level, it becomes actually a negative thing to paskin like that, because you're going to negativity could come out of it. You're creating all kinds of like booby traps in the world of potential unelevatedness. And therefore, we have to be magbir chasadim al gevuros. Since like the world is not yet holding on such a level to perceive this, we have to be bringing down the chesed and not the gevuros, right? Because going in according to Shammai could create a negative reality. Yeah?
Is that similar to saying like kol chadash asur min Torah?
Saying what? I'm sorry?
It sounds like
I didn't hear you.
Chadash asur min Torah, like
Chadash asur min Torah?
Like I don't know, Chazam Sofer or someone said it. Chazam.
Yeah.
That they just new things come and you say, no, asur, just we don't know what it is.
Yeah.
Like
Could be.
now.
It could be. In other words, like you're saying that there's deeper ways of seeing of it because it's complicated. They don't understand it. They just immediately sort of push it aside. Yeah, and for good reason, right? Because you don't understand like what you're dealing with. It could lead to bad things. So essentially, since we're not digging so deep and looking so carefully, it is the halacha goes like Hillel. We say, I'm sorry, I'm sure you might have something there, but the reality is if we're going to try and bring that into our day-to-day life, it's going to create issues for us, and therefore we can't paskin like that.
You're saying in this world today we don't go like
We paskin like Hillel still, right? He's saying this is we're talking about Shammai is like a messianic reality that we're trying to get to, but we can only get there if the Rov B'nai Adam, if the majority of Sanhedrin sees the world like that.
Yeah, how are we going today like Hillel if a lot of people do hold like chadash asur min Torah, like they basically just default asur on new things.
That's Hillel.
The perspective of that.
No, when you say Chadash Asur Min Torah, it means like if you're going to bring some kind of a new, deep insight and paskin based on that, that's what I thought you meant. Chadash means like chidushim.
No, chadash min Torah is usually talking about like there's an iPhone. We didn't have iPhone before. That's chadash.
Right.
Okay, so it's asur because we don't know what it is. The internet, movies, whatever, like asur because we don't know what they are.
Refrigerators.
Okay.
Like it's a general outlook that I feel Charedim have often. It's like a new thing comes along, whatever it is.
Again, that's not really accessing the Gevuros HaKadoshos per se, right? They're basically saying that there's evil in this thing.
Potentially.
But they're not really saying it's potential evil. I mean, they're pointing to the evil, right?
Like VR, I don't know. These things that come along, we don't really know what they are. It's chadash. That's its characteristic. It's new.
I'm not sure that's necessarily a psak, but like in other words, they're looking at the actual evil that comes along with it, right? It's not a wonder. It's filled with evil, right? They're saying like that you're going to try and tell me that this is somehow mutter. That's already like a shaila. There's the clear isurim in those things. It's not the hidden isurim in those things. Yeah.
Those things aren't 100% used for evil. Like Chabad found a way, like to have a website. We use our phone. We can use our
You know, they're not saying like this like technology is evil. They're saying that the risks outweigh the benefits,
It
right?
can also be elevated. Like with the technology, we're able to do a lot more things you're not able to do without the technology.
I don't think anyone is ushering technology, right? That's not where the usher comes on. No one's saying that you're not allowed to use things for holy purposes. The point is if you have this thing, are you going to use it for holy purposes? And is it even possible to get away from the dangers involved? right? So even don't like just point to Chabad like it's okay. Chabad also demands you have filters, and it's very, very. You want to go to Chabad schools, you have to sign up and say you don't have these phones in your house. It's not so simple.
But they automatically usher like it completely.
It's only like extreme sex.
Okay, but again, it's because there's plenty of danger, and there's it's to in order to pioneer something, and like sort of find the potential good in this thing, you need to have a very, very strong backing. You have to you have to have someone of great power and that you can rely on them. So the fact that the Rebbe pushes us to use these technologies, when you go and use them with the koach of the Rebbe, and that's like your heter, yeah, if your Rav is not pushing you into those things, because he's saying, I myself am going to fall from those things, you don't have an asinus koach and empowerment to do it, right? You can rely, so you have to really, and again, what is the Rebbe's heter? It comes with his whole Chassidus, his explanation of like how we can elevate the world. The shita of Chabad, if you learn it, it gives you certain kochos, right, to do different types of elevation.
Does the Nasi Hador pushing it give a heter to everyone to use it?
If they pick it up, you know what I'm saying? Yes, it's available. But in other words, if their Rabbanim are sort of blocking them from that because they feel it's going to bring down their kehila, they have to shepherd their own people. You know what I'm saying? Theoretically, they're that's exactly what we're saying. Like in a perfect world, they could also learn Chassidus, and we're trying to push the whole world to deepening their insights into seeing the Torah the way the Rebbe sees it. But until such time, everyone has to paskin accordingly. Yeah. Did you want to say something?
Yeah, that's a question about the people that come from the line of Torah and the people that come from the line of Chesed. You're saying,
Mm-hmm.
the question was like, stay away from people that are not stay like that are more poor.
Mm-hmm.
And maybe they're also like people that you should like.
We're actually saying those people are sharper and smarter, right? Because they look into things. The reason why they're gevura is because they're not accepting things on face value. They're looking deeper into the matter. So as a personality trait, you're right, that could be off-putting, right? Because they're not accepting, because they're judging. But the reality is that in that exactness of judgment, they're medayek, they're looking for more exact truth, right? Yeah.
The ones who are gevura today, it's still coming from the sheet of Hillel, which is we're not touching it because we're scared.
Right.
Right?
Yeah.
If it was the sheet of Shammai, it would be like, don't use your phone because we want you to access everything all at once, not just one website at a time. That would be the level above. Like it's not like that's not what
The point is
that's
that
not why people are saying don't use phones. They're saying don't use phones because we're scared you're gonna. It's like a fear. It's not because we want you to access holy Gvura. It's like.
Okay.
Isn't that Shammai the potential for evil?
In general, being machmir, we're saying is that we're not shifting the whole Torah into you're not allowed to do this. We're saying they are allowed to do it, and then being careful in that what you're allowed to do is not it also has its inyan, but we're not necessarily saying that itself is the shift to the world of Shammai, where you're accessing the holy Gevuros and doing the negative mitzvahs in a completely different vein, where you're actually accomplishing something else, right? You could still be even in the world of Hillel, there's still things you can't do, put it like that. And it's not, and when you're staying away and doing negative mitzvahs, it's because of a different reason. Like the nature of the negative mitzvah is because there's evil in the world you're trying to avoid. When you get to this realm of Shammai's paskening, we're not worried about any more evil in the world. It's been settled, right? So what are you staying away from? You're not staying away from anything. You're trying to access a level of negation. You're basically looking into the potential and the spiritual source of all things, and you want to bring that level into this reality. How do you do it? Not by accomplishing something, but by not accomplishing something. By not doing something is itself a thing, right? So it's just a completely different conversation. We've basically veered off into this idea of being machmir about negative things. You have to understand that's all in a world of Hillel, where we're still worried about evil. the idea of going into a state of Shammai is a world where evil is not really our problem anymore. We've basically refined the evil. No one's scared their children are going to fall off into this thing. We're just bringing more and more goodness into the world. And on the contrary, we can even bring a higher level of goodness into the world, which will ensure that evil will never even possibly come out again by essentially drawing such a high level of divine light from the Yud-K that it negates any potentiality for evil for coming out. But then your accessing of your negative mitzvahs is no longer that you're scared what's going to happen if you fall. You're beyond that. You're in a state of just drawing down deeper and deeper levels of light. And how do you do this? By not doing. So that's what I'm saying. I don't think that this deviation into the cell phone conversation is applicable here, because it's still in a Hillel world where we're worried about brokenness and mixing of good and evil, and therefore, just as soon as we're in that state of mind, being machmir does not mean you're holding like Shammai, right? It's a different thing.
Shammai is what you're masaking those klipas at a higher level, like all these things that have evil, you actually bring them up.
He's not talking about necessarily, he's not talking about like taking part of evil things and transforming them at that point. The evil's staying where it's in its place. He's not going for the evil. On the contrary, what's he doing? He's not doing everything. Right? He's not engaging in the world. Right? So no, he's not taking things that are usher and using them. That's a whole different conversation. Fine, but in the meantime, what we're saying here is that while the masses have not yet reached the state of accessing the potential of the Pnimius HaTorah, etc., we have to hold like Hillel. We have to strengthen the Chassadim over the Gevuros, and that's therefore we paskin like Hillel, Chassadim. Ad shebei Sham Makom Hillel Eino Mishnah. The point that we actually completely negate Shammai's entire approach. Anyone who's going to try to, in other words, again, when you're being machmir, you're not all of a sudden holding like Shammai. That would make you like excommunicated from the Jewish people, basically. You can't do that. You're just being machmir on the world of Hillel. If you hold like Shammai today, you are actually it's called Eino Mishnah. It's not even considered a teaching. Yeah.
You're saying that Beis Shammai is from like the level of Yedias HaShlila, Beis Hillel is the level of Yedias HaChiyuv?
Yes.
So Beis Shammai is essentially negating things in order to refine a particular thing by saying it's not this, we have to be strict with this aspect, with that aspect, with this aspect, with that aspect, in order that the thing is like being touched by not being touched. You're like backing away from it in order to reveal what it is.
Yeah, you could say that. V'ad kedei kach shev'nogei lehalachos, so much to behold like Hillel in today's time, that those halachas shenimnu v'rav Beis Shammai Beis Hillel, like we explained before, when they, in a few instances where they did take a vote and they were more Beis Shammai chevra that voted, which means the Gevuros overtook the Chasadim before the time of Mashiach, they said that day was as difficult as the day they made the Egel, as we explained why, right? Because Shorish to Kolin, this is the Egel is the root of all negative things. Why? Because essentially, if you try to put too much Gevurah in the world today, right, in the place of Chasadim, it will lead to negative things. And primarily what we said is if you try to make things prohibited, which really you don't know why, and on every reason that you can see, they should be elevatable, and because of some Shammai somewhere who told you that there's some hidden evil in there, you're not going to touch it, what you're going to do is you're going to leave the world unelevated for no good reason, right? Like it says, the judge must paskin based on what his eyes see. So if you're sitting there and someone sitting next to you who's smarter than you says, hey, paskin like this, it's completely usher. You have to paskin according to how you see it. And since you don't see any problem in eating this, you have to eat it, right? And you have to elevate it. And to not do so would be like to leave a little idol sitting around the world, where it's just like an aspect of negativity lying around that you cannot elevate. However, everything's going to change. This is the whole point. The evil will have put in one place. Like we said, this is akin to the time of the Gan Eden, where there was evil in the world, but it was all packed into one little snake, and it didn't mix in with anything else. The world had been completely refined. And that's like a pretty good looking world, right? In general, it was Gan Eden. It's just that it wasn't the time of complete removal of evil. In other words, that's likened to the time of Tchias HaMesim, but it was still a time. It was like a wondrous world of godliness, and the evil was at bay in a particular, relegated to a particular place. That's called the birur of the Tov Min Hara. And therefore, we're not so concerned, like we were saying before, we're not so concerned that you're going to fall into this trap, you're going to fall into this trap. We basically are living in Gan Eden, right? So you're not living in a world where you're worried about the influence of evil overtaking you. And therefore, we will all be in a situation when we can look deeper and deeper and try and find the hidden evil, right? Because doing so is not going to make it that the world cannot be then elevated. It's already done, right? We're not going to leave things behind and leave the world in an unelevated place. So we have a green light, essentially, to start looking into the potential of everything and find its deepest aspects. B'chinas hasagas hashlila, reaching the level of hasagas hashlila, which is the knowledge by way of negation. Therefore, all things which are mutter in this time will become asur in the days of Mashiach, like Beis Shammai, right? Because we will basically find, well, maybe there's something wrong with this, maybe there's something wrong with this, maybe there's something wrong with this. It's some deep, deep way which will enable us to essentially arrive at that place due to our superior knowledge. Because we'll reach this level of seeing things in the holy Gevordos, not because we're scared of falling from it, but because we see the higher potential, higher than the Chasadim, and this is basically Hamshachasi al derech hasagas hashlila, and therefore accessing this will be like accessing the knowledge by way of negation. Yeah.
So maybe there's something wrong with this.
They are looking deeper into it, right? But
isn't it recognizing that it's like so perfect, I don't want to touch it?
Yes, but in other words, that's still called judging it, right? It's just the judgment goes. In other words, I put it like this. The name Elokim. Let's look at just Gevoras for a second, right? Like you said, avoid people who are Gvoradik, because they're going to judge you. The name Elokim is the source of all negativity in the world, because it contracts things and contracts things and contracts things, and when you judge something, the judgment can become angry and violent, right? So the Gevoras leads to negativity, Pashut. If you have too much Gevora, and you let the Gevora run, you chase a guy away, right? It's like it creates negativity in the world. But the reality is that the Gevura from the Shem Elokim itself, that Hashem is called Gevura, He's called Elokim, which is it's actually like looking at a diamond, right? That you're judging it and judging it and judging it, not because you're looking to harm, but because God Himself, it's so perfect that you want to look for any possible flaw, and you just like keep. It's just like in other words, even the angels cannot find merit in Hashem's eyes. How can an angel not find a merit in Hashem's eyes? They're perfect, right? But Hashem judges the angels, and they too are afraid of being judged by Him on Rosh Hashanah, etc. Because if you're going to take the extreme level of judgment, no one can hold up to this. But so that's a problem if the result of that would be punishment and based in and hurting people, because there's evil in the world. But when the evil's all relegated, that level just reaches you to incredible levels of depth of insight, right? It's the Shem Elokim in a holy way, right? It's holy Gevura. It doesn't harm anybody. And therefore, it's essentially just finding deeper insights that otherwise would not be able to be sought after in a world where you're worried that Gevuras will hurt somebody. You can only access this when you're no longer worried that Gevuras will hurt it, because the evil's been put in the snake and he's like behaving himself, right? One paragraph at a time. Okay, let's move on. Mincha.